Okay, it's 10:03. I think that's a good time to kick off. I just want to first say good morning, good afternoon, or indeed good evening. My name is Charlotte. I am the Director of Programmes for the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, and I just want to welcome everybody to this webinar today, especially those from CWEIC Strategic Partners. We are delighted to be working in collaboration with Coventry University on this webinar and the bespoke MBA programme in global trade and investment, which we'll be learning more about later. We are very excited today to be joined by Dr Suresh George, who is the Associate Professor of International Business and the Curriculum Lead for the International Business Portfolio at Coventry University, who will be leading us in the topic today, Rising Tigers and Dragons on Shifting Sands, the new geopolitical conundrum for the Commonwealth. I'll shortly hand over to the MBA academic team to say a few words before Dr George begins this masterclass, but I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a few words about CWEIC and the Commonwealth for those who may not have come across us before. CWEIC is a membership organisation with the mandate from the Commonwealth heads of government to promote trade and investment across the 56 nations. Our job is to bring the economic opportunity of the Commonwealth to the world's doorstep and to promote the Commonwealth as a place to do business. With our shared legal systems, administrative systems, and common language, it is on average around 21% cheaper to do business within the Commonwealth, and we call this the Commonwealth Advantage. Our network is supported by an extremely diverse partner base of around 114 strategic partners from across the Commonwealth, from governments, both regional and national, to chambers of commerce, investment promotion agencies, to multilateral organisations and global businesses. We have a hub network of around 14 offices spread across the Commonwealth, providing in-country expertise and access to markets for businesses looking to expand and operate. So what really makes the Commonwealth a unique place to do business? It has a combined population of around 2.5 billion citizens. It is home to over 40% of the global workforce and over half of the top 20 emerging cities. CWEIC recognises the challenges that face many of the Commonwealth today, including recent economic and geopolitical challenges and the ongoing threats of things like climate change. To address some of these challenges, the significance of education cannot be underestimated. Further education and professional qualifications play a vital role in supporting workers to reach their potential and provides employers with a highly skilled and versatile workforce. A key to supporting some of these global challenges is educating and nurturing ambitious leaders who can think critically and strategically to solve complex business issues. We're very excited to see what the MBA current programmes cohort will achieve in the future. And I think we've got our first cohort starting in May of this year. The bespoke MBA programme is a fantastic opportunity to develop skills and the knowledge essential to a career in business. And we hope you'll consider the immense opportunities that this programme can bring to yourselves and your business. We hope you enjoy the masterclass and do please get involved by asking questions. I'll now hand over to Dr. Ina Maycock to say a few words and to introduce Dr. George. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first Taster Masterclass. Charlotte has introduced the Commonwealth, and I want to introduce the MBA as well. My name is Dr. Ina Maycock. I'm the Executive Director of the MBA. This Taster session this webinar offers you a preview into the Coventry University Commonwealth MBA course in partnership with the Commonwealth Enterprise and Innovation Council. It's bespoke, so it's exclusively for CWEIC members, its strategic partners, and its network, and has a specialized pathway in global trade and investment. And that's why we're starting with Dr. George, who is a specialist in international trade and international business. I would love to give you a quick preview of Dr. George's background. As Charlotte said, he's an associate professor and the curriculum lead for our international business portfolio here at Coventry University. His research interests is around the linkages between international business, institutional environments, the geopolitical context of doing business, and he has published key themes around this area. He has also been involved in several widely used strategic solutions within management and international business education. More recently, he's been developing an interest in sustainable and ethical business strategies, particularly in emerging markets. He has over 20 years of experience in business within an international context and has lived and worked across India, Kenya, Nigeria, Oman, and the UK. He has also taught at universities in Portugal and India. He's a fellow of the Higher Education Academy and a member of the Academy of International Business. Welcome, Dr. George. The stage is yours.
Thank you, for the introduction. Thank you, Charlotte, for the wonderful introduction. I hope I can live to your expectations. I also like to welcome all the participants, and I do hope we can learn from each other on this session. Please feel free to ask questions, and because it's more of a debate around the topic. Now, I'm actually going to start by asking us to focus on just the Commonwealth and its interactions with two of its greatest economic actors, India and China. Now, because this is a taster session of what we do at Coventry, I'm going to limit myself to just a few key points. The first section is looking at some of the key geopolitical insights in the world of 2024 and how this leads to a geopolitical conundrum for the Commonwealth. And finally, look at some of the key aspects of this conundrum for the Commonwealth in terms of both opportunities as well as threats. And then we'll open up for a brief discussion. Now, to start with, let's just review what's the current geopolitical landscape, particularly around the Commonwealth. Now, if you were reading the newspapers on a daily basis, or perhaps watching some of the news videos, or listening to some of the podcasts around geopolitics, you will see that one of the biggest threats to our international order and how it affects international trade is that national sovereignty and the concept of sovereign legitimacy is shifting because of shifting power equations. There's a widespread decline of liberalism, and there's also a decline in what one would like to call inclusive international architectures around peace and war. Now that is leading us to a contest around both unilateralism, multilateralism, and forcing us to challenge some of the established norms around specific countries. And that's very key for us who are students of international business. If you look at the two major players that we are focusing on, India and China are approaching the geopolitical landscapes in different forms. As a member of the Quad security grouping, India is doing its best to, kind of keep China away from the Indo-Pacific area, while China is, for the most part, becoming a geopolitical heavyweight in its own right. We also see that some Commonwealth states are getting involved in this. For example, the very recent naval exercise in the Indian Ocean, led by Australia, a Commonwealth nation, is forcing countries, particularly Commonwealth states, to take positions. However, one should accept the fact here that as an economic superpower, China is also an alternative geopolitical point for many countries. It's also a success story for many developing states in the Commonwealth because of the mere fact. Just one fact is that its ability to take over 680 million people out of poverty between 2 decades. That's a success story many developing parts of the Commonwealth would like to emulate. And to this mix, one of the challenges we have is what is increasingly becoming evident, that our entire international order is being disrupted from bipolarity to multipolarity to a new digital world order. Now, what is the implication for us in terms of trade geopolitics? Now, one of the key aspects of trade geopolitics is the tensions we see between both countries and some of the Commonwealth states. As Charlotte said, the Commonwealth is a major producer grouping and also a major consumer grouping. We have 40% of the global working population in the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has over 60% of its population below the age of 29, which means there's a new generation of population that is creating new forms of demand. There are also several informal and formal grouping of states outside of our traditional political order, which is causing tensions between markets, the national security agenda of countries, the scramble for resources, and the groupings of nations. This is compounded by the fact that there is an interplay between the tensions and disruptive mega trends that are impacting the world. And I will go that separately. Now, one of the most pertinent aspects of our analysis of what's happening in terms of the current geopolitical tension is trade geopolitics. And particularly the way, because we are a highly interdependent and integrated global economy, how certain countries are manipulating or actually exerting their interest on the global choke points. So for example, in 2029, we had several choke points. And if you look carefully at this graph, you see the biggest choke points by weight of trade is around the South Asia Sea. And you will also see that it's also a place of contest. Now, mind you, this is also a point where this is quite important for us because over 60% of the world's economic contributions, either in terms of consumption or production, pass through these global choke points. Now, what you see there is that we have several geopolitical interests. China is trying to become the dominant naval power, while India is trying to maintain its naval supremacy by using the US and other allies, the Quad Alliance, to maintain a freedom of passage. However, please note here that China was for all its interest in the South China Sea, has never ever deviated from the fact that it wants freedom of navigation and for the global economic trade to travel to the region. Now, sorry. Okay. Now, the reality of 2024 is that the United States, China, and India are heavily active in the Indo-Pacific region. And this is just a current map of what's happening in that region, the global choke points. Now, I'm not going into the politics of the choke point, but more specifically, what I would like to show here is the fact that although you see these military assets or control interests by India, China, and the US, what you should realize here is that in this context, China's Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank is slowly becoming the lender, the preferred lender for many of the countries in this region. In fact, the Chinese Export-Import Bank has become the second largest lender for infrastructure projects in many of these countries. And that's quite important for us to understand why we must understand how China and India interplay with their relationship with the Commonwealth. Now, moving forward, out of the total population of 2.5 billion people, 2.6 billion people in the Commonwealth, India, as a member of the Commonwealth, has 60% of the population. Yet, we cannot discard the fact that China is at the second highest population, is a key to Commonwealth trade dynamics. Now, the contest here is how diaspora-mediated remittances are helping with the story of the success story of both India and China. And this also leads to soft power deployments and how both countries are using diaspora for soft power deployment. In fact, one of the contributing factors to the digital world order is the fact that China is dominating the semiconductor industry, on which the digital order will depend, and is increasingly becoming more important to the digital world order because of its focus on technology platforms rather than India, although India is dominating in technology and services. It's also pertinent here to explain that although the Indian diaspora is perceived to be more prominent in many of the Commonwealth states, per capita billionaire wealth is more specific to the Chinese diaspora. Now, you can see this very clearly in some states like Malaysia, Canada, and the UK or South Africa, where there are substantial diaspora population from both India and China. And these are Commonwealth states. And in fact, the smallest Commonwealth state has about 810 people of both countries who are there. Now, this is actually creating geopolitical diaspora contest, which is playing into the strategic intent of these countries, and which will impact how we view the international trade moving forward. Now, while India is considered to be a bigger exporter of talent to the Commonwealth through its command of the English language and, of course, its more closeness to the British system or the English language, you also notice that the Chinese diaspora are increasingly helping in transforming the world. Particularly if you look at some of the energy transition spheres, Chinese diasporas are quite key. Now, this brings us to the conundrum. So what is this? What does this mean for the Commonwealth? Now, let's start with India, just because of the fact that the Commonwealth has been one of the first institutions that India has engaged with at the global level before and after independence. India was very active in the Commonwealth through its foreign policy interventions, particularly in the 1950s and 60s, and slowly the interest started waning all the way till 1990s when it started becoming where you could see the end of the non-aligned movement and a lack of interest. However, although India is currently the world's largest population and China is declining in terms of population, India will continue to decline. And the challenge we have is, if India and China is declining, what is the single biggest block of countries that will support the population growth of the world and hence help in developing markets? You will be surprised to know it's actually the Commonwealth, because if you look at the latest 2023 population demographic data, you will find out of the top countries. By the way, Syria is the fastest growing population in the world, in the world as 2023. Then next, the top four are from the Commonwealth. You have Nigeria, you have other countries in the Commonwealth that are increasingly becoming important. And many members of the Commonwealth are increasingly become dispersed because of migration towards the rest of the world, which then helps us with how does the Commonwealth deal with transnational diasporic networks in helping geoeconomic strategic intent of both Commonwealth countries, as well as maybe political actors like India and China. One of the other political conundrums is how do you deal with these countries? If India is following a specific geopolitical approach, China is following a much bigger infrastructure-led geopolitical position. In fact, if you look at some of the major infrastructure projects in the world, India is actually one of the biggest, China is the biggest lender to infrastructure projects. So then we also shifts. Charlotte mentioned the fact that we have 40% of the global working population. We have a very young population in the Commonwealth. We are going to support the world's transition to a much cleaner world. And that's going to happen because of the fact of we have a very young population. Along with this, you will have a shift in economic power and a shift towards the rise of new geopolitical players like India, China, and some other countries in the Commonwealth. The geopolitical rivalry between the US and China is actually going to help shift economic power to non-political actors like the Commonwealth. And we have already seen examples of that from other informal groupings of countries in recent times, like countries like Russia and China and Iran. So where does that lead us to? Where is this geopolitical shift leading us to? Now, Ian Bremmer, from the well-noted political scientist, has actually said we might end up moving towards a G0 geopolitical world where there is no major political power and there is no global leader. We are moving toward a rule by consensus, or a world order where you have no major players. And this is where the Commonwealth can perhaps help, because the Commonwealth is a non-political, loose grouping of countries who want to do better in a world where there is, on one side, most of our island states in the Commonwealth are affected by climate transitions and the climate emergency, particularly the island states. And if we are moving towards a cleaner energy system to power the next industrial revolution, most of our renewable energy materials and resources are going to come from the Commonwealth. Now, a G0 political world order seems to be quite plausible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but seems to be quite plausible if the Commonwealth starts engaging with this geopolitical conundrum. And that is where I want us to look at some of the key advantages for the Commonwealth from what I've explained so far. Now, we have seen what has happened during a black swan event like the COVID pandemic, and how, for example, most of our understanding of international geopolitical power and order was thrown into disarray by the COVID pandemic. A post-COVID recovery, economic recovery, is happening more in some critical areas of the Commonwealth. We also see that the Commonwealth is key for energy transition activities and systems, particularly because India and China, just simply by the virtue of their huge carbon footprints and the fact that they're one of the biggest polluters, are major swing actors in our climate climate transition systems. And because of their involvement in the Commonwealth, one as one of the dominant players in the Commonwealth, and one because it affects the trade dynamics in the Commonwealth, has an opportunity to be major swing countries, particularly for the energy transition system. And the pandemic and also recent geopolitical events, has forced many countries to reconfigure their global supply chains. Of course, you could argue here that China is trying to reconfigure global supply chains because of the trade choke points that we have seen. You could, and here, China is using its Isle of Pearls strategy to create new trade configurations, while India is doing its diamond necklace strategy also to control changes, to control this choke point. However, if you read the more recent literature, you will find that many countries have started reconfiguring their global supply chain, which is very important for us in the Commonwealth, because this gives us the opportunity to reconfigure our own internal systems, institutional configurations, to help with the new global supply chain. Now, please do not forget here that China will still be a very important player because of the fact that the RMB has become a de facto currency in many regional trades. Many regional Commonwealth trade deals are done in the RMB. It also then leads us to friendshoring. Why can't the Commonwealth? And it's happening in the Commonwealth, particularly through the Commonwealth Free Trade Area agreements, and it's also happening through the African Union's trade deals, that friendshoring is becoming more relevant and more important. So intra-Commonwealth trade combined with new global supply chain reconfigurations will be a win-win situation for the Commonwealth. And finally, and this is where I think this is more crucial, a crucial role that the Commonwealth can play. The Commonwealth exists as a friendly grouping of it's a non-political friendly grouping of states. The Commonwealth actually can act as a supplier of legitimacy to whatever China and India wants to do in their global ambitions. And this is quite key, how we perceive the Commonwealth's interactions with the countries, with these countries. Now, I would just like to have a breakout session, and this actually concludes the taster session. I was told I have only about 20 minutes, so if you have any questions for me, we can start the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. George. I'll hand over to Anna to moderate the questions.
Yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A box at the bottom, and I will make sure they get answered by Dr. George. But yeah, do send along your questions. Well, I think you've explained it so well that we haven't got any questions at the moment. But perhaps if anyone thinks of a question in a little bit, feel free to put them in the chat and we can get back to them later. Otherwise, for now, I will hand over to Eno to start talking about the MBA program.
Thank you so much, Anna. Welcome again, everyone, and good morning once again. I'm just going to share a few slides and talk for 5-10 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. Welcome once again, everyone. I'm going to be talking about our bespoke course in partnership with CWEIC our MBA in Global Trade and Investment. And I'd like you to join me in just engaging with this. Before I start, I'd like to introduce our Associate Course Director, Aneyas Gikas, who will be supporting me as I go through this. I'd introduce the MBA.
Welcome.
Thank you. I introduced the MBA in Global Trade and Investment. It's a Coventry University flagship course. It's situated within the business school, and it's designed specifically for CWEIC members, its strategic partners, and networks only. It'll be delivered online with inclusion of residentials in one of our global hubs during the delivery of our specialist modules in global trade and investment. There'll be opportunities within this course to enhance your skill and understanding of global trade investments and agreements and partnerships. But it would have a very strong practitioner focus. Personal and skill development will be the underlying theme of this course. It's quite generalist, but as you get to the master's level, you then become a specialist. It's designed to develop holistic, innovative, and socially responsible business leaders in high-performance organizations within the global market. The content of the course, it includes 6 15-credit modules and a final 30-credit MBA consultancy project. You're going to start off with innovation and entrepreneurship, then you move on to leadership and change management, strategy and decision-making, global marketing, and the ones highlighted in green are your specialist module: global trade and investments, the political and legal landscape, financial instruments in the global business environment, and your MBA consultancy project. Your project will be solving a business problem within your own organization. It will run over a 2-year period, and you will be completing 1 to 2 modules per semester. Already, you will be exempted from the 4 certificate level modules because you are at a level that exempts you from these modules. This is what it looks like. The ones in red are the modules you will be exempted from: business processes, geopolitical and legal environment, organizational behavior, and financial analysis. You start off at the diploma level, complete the 4 modules at diploma level, and move on to the master's level. We are expecting that at the end of this program, you're able to bring about change within your organization. Delivery scheme. You will be supported via experienced module specialists, Coventry University Aula platform, a dedicated course director and associate course directors for each module. Participants will have the opportunity to participate in our residential at one of Coventry University's global hubs across the world, and it could either be in Coventry, Dubai, Brussels, Rwanda, or Singapore. During the residentials, the local teams within our hub will draw on local and regional expertise to provide a schedule of master sessions, which will tie in key themes of the modules during the residentials. We're expecting visits to businesses, guest speaker sessions, and facilitated group support sessions. Learners who are not able to travel to the hub for these residential sessions will receive access to relevant content and materials. For those who will join us in May 2024, we also have a social business trip to Kerala in India at the end of June, which is partly funded by the university. So you will be eligible to participate in that just by being part of the MBA Top-Up program. These are the draft schedule for those starting in May 2024. We start off with the first module on the 13th, which will be your induction, and at the end of the month, we start the delivery. Then the second module on the 16th of September, and the third module on the 20th of January 2025. Our key partners that we work with, who have worked with Coventry University, are the NHS, Blakemore Air Ambulance, DCMS Virgin Care, Just Eat Ministry of Defence, Hertfordshire Council, University College London, Net Absolute Hall Council, and many more. We have a lot of partners who work with us on our MBA programs. What do we offer? An international team of academics who offer an international perspective. They draw from their industry experience to inform teaching, research, and consultancy activity. We have very innovative assessments, and there are no exams on the MBA. We have weekly drop-in sessions with your module leaders and your associate lecturers. We also have mini MBA webinar series, which we use to develop soft skills, and also we have networking events every semester. We have specialized guest speaker sessions to contextualize your learning and give you an opportunity to network. The optional residentials in one of our global hubs and our MBA conference, which happens every 2 years. Also, what support would you get as a student? Our library is open 24 hours, both physically and online. We include digital books as well as journals. Access to online study skills, the Center for Academic Writing, Sigma, Maths and Statistics support, and the 24 hours access to our virtual learning environment, Aula. Weekly advice sessions, access to course directors, access to progress coach, and access to health and well-being support. We also have a frequently asked questions on our Aula course page. So what then is the entry criteria? We would expect that you would be an employee or a strategic partner of CWEIC, its member or its network. You'd have an undergraduate degree. You would have 7 years experience of senior leadership experience or experience of running your own business. With that evidence, we then exempt you from the certificate level modules. The documents we would require from you are your degree certificate, professional qualifications or award, CV, cover letter, and the application form. Fees. The fees for this academic year is $13,533, but every CWEIC applicant has a discount of £1,000, so it drops down to $12,533. You will now be able to pay in installments each semester. Admissions. Once we accept your offer, we'll give you a payment link, and then we'll reach out to you to kind of enroll and start the whole onboarding process with us. We are here to support you through this process to facilitate a smooth enrollment. I've gotten to the end of this because I want to talk to you, so I'm going to stop sharing. If there are any questions, email us or contact CWEIC. Thank you. Over to you, Hannah.
Yes, there's just, if there's any questions about the MBA program, also please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And whilst we wait for those questions, I think I will send along some questions to back about the geopolitical dynamic. So starting with this question, and I will just hit answer live. So Dr. George, how is the Commonwealth strengthening trade relations amongst its members given the changing global geographic landscape? And perhaps Charlotte, our director of programs, would also like to come in here. That's a question.
I'm happy to start to give a couple of thoughts, and then maybe Dr. George, you can follow on as well, because we had a short discussion before we started this webinar on a couple of items. I think you know, one of the things that has come across and Dr. George mentioned is the incredible kind of sort of soft power capacity within the Commonwealth. It is not a group of nations that is bound together by signing up to a particular trade agreement or anything like that. It's you signed up to the Commonwealth Charter, and it's very much a familial group of nations. So I think, broadly speaking, we know that, you know, global economic challenges are Commonwealth challenges. And I think where the Commonwealth has an ability to kind of bring voices together is, you know, we're not bound by kind of particular councils, we're not bound by particular agreements. We have the ability to get an incredibly diverse group around the table. We have the ability to get, and specifically what we do with CWEIC, we have the ability to bring businesses and the private sector direct to governments and direct to both sort of governments at sort of ministerial level and kind of trade ministers. We often host sort of roundtables with trade ministers or ministers of investment promotion, all the way up to heads of government at CHOGM. One of the very, very unique things about CHOGM is the ability for heads of government to sit with the private sector and hear directly from them as to what some of the challenges are and hear that perspective. So I think, you know, a very long-winded way of saying that the sort of the soft power is really the Commonwealth strength within this particular sphere. And I don't know, Dr. George, or indeed any of the team, if you'd like to follow on from that.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think that's a quite relevant question, given the nature of the Commonwealth as you've described, Charlotte. And also, I mean, in terms of what the Commonwealth is doing, and if you look at some of the member state activities, I think fundamentally, I think many states in the Commonwealth are revisiting, and I'm using this term very loosely because I can't find another term, the so-called Global South. So the Global South, which includes several of our developing states, is increasingly becoming important in a global soft power dialogue, particularly because, I mean, just let's take last year. The Global South countries contributed almost 42% towards the global economy. So that's a major, a trade landscape. And countries like India have actually supported, including helping many multilateral forums. For example, India's contribution towards the Global South has been, bringing the African Union into the UN Security Council, supporting Australia's, decision to be a member of the UN Security Council. China's focus here would be, how it's helping with soft, low-interest loans for infrastructure building, particularly if you're looking at countries that are trying to bridge the digital divide, and which is one of the Commonwealth key interest areas. So yes, it's happening. Now, the diaspora and interventions of the diaspora, they're also contributing heavily into the changes that the Commonwealth is also enabling, and is helping reshape some of our understanding of the country. So it's quite important. And finally, just to conclude, I think another key intervention that you might see becoming more prominent is climate emergency measures that the Commonwealth states are doing, particularly smaller island developing states. And it's very pertinent because the Commonwealth is actually key in helping to support the challenges faced by those island states. So I hope I can answer the question. Thank you.
I can follow on just very briefly from that to something that came to me as you were answering, Dr. George, and I think some people may know this about the Commonwealth already, but within the Commonwealth, the sort of every country has one vote, regardless of size, regardless of population, regardless of GDP, regardless of anything. So it's an incredibly diverse group of nations that have equal shares, and I think is probably one of the only organizations in which sort of, Kiribati has the same voting power as the United Kingdom or as India or as Canada, Australia, for example. So when you think about the sort of, and go exactly what you were saying with small island states, and I think something, and I'm going to kick myself for being quoted on this, but something like sort of 33 of the Commonwealth nations or 25 of the Commonwealth nations are small island states. They represent a huge voting bloc within the Commonwealth. And it is really an opportunity then for those larger countries or countries that sit on UN Security Councils or others to take the interests of small island states or climate vulnerable states to these sort of wider global gatherings. And I think that's something that is really incredibly unique about the Commonwealth as well.
Thank you to you both for that very thorough answer. I think we have time for one more question about the sort of the topic of the masterclass, and then there's another question about the MBA that we'll get to. But Dr. George, perhaps you would like to comment on how does Australia fit into this geopolitical dynamic?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that question. I think I was a bit afraid of the question, but I think I'll answer it. So, right. So, in recent times, I think, so let's just go back into, say, about 10, 15 years back. Australia has been one of the Commonwealth states that have engaged bilaterally with China, particularly because it's an export of natural resources to China. It also imports a large amount of trade goods from China. Australia also has a large Chinese diaspora. So there have been multiple levels of engagement. Ironically, the other side of the political dilemma that Australia has been doing is its involvement in the quadrilateral security partnership, the Quad, and the fact that Australia is trying to contest against China in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, I think what is happening is Australia is in a bit of a dilemma because, considering the fact that it's one of the biggest trading partners for other countries in the Commonwealth, particularly the UK, I personally think that there would be some major shifts in the way Australia redefines its position in a G0 political landscape. And that's where the advantage of the country has. It's engaging bilaterally with India, with other Commonwealth states, particularly the island states, in a very positive fashion. So there shouldn't be any reason why it would not be more important. And one of the key aspects of how Australia might, redefine itself comes from the fact that it's quite a key player in the Asia-Pacific region. And we are expecting a reconfiguration of supply chains, particularly to move some elements of the supply chain. I mean, at this point in the global economic cycle, we cannot replace China as the biggest, most critical player for us in this global supply chain. But there's going to be some shift towards other parts of the Asia-Pacific region. And Australia could benefit from some of those shifts. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I will now hand over this question to the MBA team. How is the MBA divided between skills development and academic learning?
Thank you, Anna. I'll just pick this up and talk through it. I'll talk through how it's divided. The key focus for us here is ensuring that you get the knowledge you need to actually achieve the goals that you set out to achieve when you come on the MBA. For some people, it's actually a switching career. Some people, it's to legitimization of their portfolio that they have, to simply say, I have something that legitimizes it. However, during your MBA, you would complete a wide variety of research-based projects. And part of this project will build your MBA career portfolio. For example, you will do things that may be around conducting market research study for your organization or your personal business. But it also nurtures your self-esteem because you begin to believe in yourself that you're capable of doing it. By undertaking this project, you're building your academic side of things. They're also developing skills as well. But also there's a big picture to keep in focus when completing your MBA because you're tracking yourself. How is the learning taking place and how am I changing in the process? But you're also generating a healthy self-interest in a balance for work, family life, and study because you all will be working professionals because you're undertaking it as a part-time program. And there's also assistance within the organization to help you to support that work-life balance. But what you learn, the soft skills you learn from it is time management. Time management you learn from it by balancing your work, study, and family life. We're also embracing social networking because part of it is to build and expand your social networks. And that's why we include all these extracurricular activities within the MBA, things around the masterclasses, visit to organizations, residentials, social enterprises, social business trips. We always encourage you to partake in it because you'll be meeting with industry leaders and business leaders and participating in conferences, discussions, and open table debates. And finally, the last thing I would say is that you would also join professional organizations while on the MBA. And we always suggest that as you go through the MBA, you reinvent yourself. You look back at what you really wanted to achieve when you started, and by the end of it, we're hoping you would have reinvented yourself. I hope this has answered your questions. I'll hand back to Anna.
Thank you very much. And I would love to do the MBA program myself, so I need to enroll. I don't think we have any more questions, but just to recap, from our side and from CWEIC. So this webinar will be available online to rewatch, and you will receive an email with the link in the coming days. I will also ask, and Aeneas, if you could put your email details in the chat, so in case there are any questions they want to ask, participants want to ask directly, they can do so. And I will also put my email in the chat if there are any questions about CWEIC and what we do, or if there's any questions how we work with Coventry University on the MBA program. Please do get in touch, and we'd be more than happy to have a conversation or be able to answer that question for you. So if there aren't any questions from the audience, I will thank Dr. George. Firstly, thank you very much for your time today, for a fantastic overview of such a complex issue. So thank you very much. And of course, to the MBA team, Dr. Maycock and Dr. Gikas, thank you very much for your time and for the continued support for CWEIC. And we look forward to working together on this MBA program. And of course, to my colleague Charlotte for wonderfully introducing the organization at the start. So thank you all very much for your time today. And we look forward to hearing from you if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.